November 6, 1942, near Jebel Bu Aukaz, just west of Tunis, North Africa. A cold morning wind rolls across the barren ridgeline, carrying with it the metallic scent of spent gunpowder and the distant rumble of tank engines. Obergefreiter Karl Fischer of the 10th Panzer Division crouches low behind a jagged outcrop of stone, his gloved hands tightening around the familiar wooden stock of his Karabiner 98K. The rifle is cold and rigid against his cheek, the way it has always been, a dependable, accurate tool built on the traditions of German marksmanship. But today, something feels different. Below him, across a shallow wadi, a line of American infantry from the 1st Battalion, 18th Infantry Regiment advances steadily through the dust. Fischer's squad has faced British Tommies, French colonial troops, and even the occasional commando unit. But this is their first real engagement with American forces on foot. Rumors have circulated in Panzer Group Africa for weeks that the Americans are inexperienced, clumsy, and poorly prepared for the realities of desert war. Many in the unit had laughed and dismissed them as the Green Army. Fischer had laughed too. Until now. A single sharp crack echoes across the valley, but it isn't from a Kar 98K. It's too fast, too close together. Crack, crack, crack. 3 shots in less than 2 seconds. Fischer stiffens. His eyes lock onto one American soldier moving forward confidently, his rifle raised with practiced fluidity. He expects the man to pause, work a bolt, and fire again, but he doesn't pause at all. Instead, the rifle barks again and again, each shot in perfect rhythm, the muzzle barely jumping, the cadence smooth and relentless. Was in Gottes Namen ist das? Murmurs Unteroffizier Dieter Radke, lowering his field glasses as if doubting his own vision. Fischer doesn't answer. He watches as the American fire 7, 8 rounds without ever once reaching for a bolt handle. No pause, no manual cycling, no break in momentum. The weapon just keeps firing, as though it's alive. Radke clicks his tongue sharply. Halbautomatisch, they've given every infantryman a semi-automatic rifle. But that's impossible, Fischer's voice cracks with disbelief. Back home such technology existed, in prototypes, in limited trials, in weapons meant for designated marksmen or elite squads. But standard infantry? Every rifleman? No army in the world had accomplished that. Except, apparently, this one. More shots erupt. Not the slow, mechanical pattern of German bolt-action fire, but something entirely different, a rolling series of controlled bursts. 8 rounds, a pause. A metallic ping rings out faintly across the sand. Then the American slams in a new clip, and without hesitation fires again. The rhythm is unmistakable, unbelievable, deadly. A shout erupts from further down the ridge as Lieutenant Hans Vetter scrambles up the slope, his map case slapping against his hip. "Take cover! The Americans have superior fire rate! Stay low and conserve your shots!" Superior fire rate? The word stunned Fischer, even more than the gunfire. For years, the Kar 98K had been the pride of the German infantry, accurate at long range, rugged and proven. But as Fischer squeezes the trigger, fires once, then yanks the bolt upward and back with a metallic clack, he feels suddenly slow, exposed, outmatched. He cycles again, fires, cycles, fires. Each movement takes seconds, precious seconds that the Americans do not waste. Bullets whistle over his head. Radke curses as splinters of rock burst around them. "They are firing like they've got machine guns," he snarls. "No," Vetter shouts over the chaos. "Not machine guns. Something else. Something new." Below, American infantry continue their advance with unnerving confidence, maintaining pressure, keeping German heads pinned down. Each shot feels deliberate, coordinated, deadly. Fischer watches once more as an American rifleman fires his 8th round. Ping! then slams in a new clip and without hesitation fires again. The rhythm is unmistakable, unbelievable, deadly. Garand, Vetter mutters almost to himself. They call it the Garand rifle. I saw it in a report. Gas-operated, semi-automatic. Ratka's eyes widen. Every soldier has one? Every single one. The realization hits Fisher like a physical blow. The Americans aren't inexperienced. They aren't clumsy. They're wielding a battlefield advantage no German infantryman has ever faced. The ridge shakes as artillery begins to fall closer. Fisher ducks instinctively, his heart pounding. Dust fills the air, the world narrowing into a haze of smoke and thunder. As he works the bolt of his Kar 98K yet again, he thinks of the American rifle, the speed of it, the rhythm of it, the terrifying efficiency of it. For the first time since arriving in North Africa, a cold thread of doubt coils in his chest. What if the enemy they mocked was the one they should have feared all along?
November 9th, 1942. Tunis. Headquarters of the 10th Panzer Division. 3 days after the firefight at Jebel Bu Aukaz, the desert sky hangs low with a curtain of dust as Oberstleutnant Wilhelm Kruger walks briskly through the cracked courtyard of the temporary command post, a commandeered Tunisian farmhouse now cramped with radio equipment and the smell of diesel. Inside, the atmosphere is tense. Officers stand crowded around a large wooden table covered in maps of the region, intelligence notes, and photographs from reconnaissance flights. A single message sits in the center, like an unexploded shell. A preliminary combat report describing the performance of American rifles encountered near the front. Kruger reads it again, slowly. Enemy infantry armed with semi-automatic rifles. Rate of fire exceeds our infantry capabilities by a significant margin. Engagement resulted in forced withdrawal despite numerical parity. He clenches his jaw. This is not what Berlin had promised. He looks up as Lieutenant Vetter steps into the room, dust still clinging to his uniform. "You were there," Kruger says, motioning him forward. "Explain what your men encountered." Vetter nods stiffly, his eyes betraying lingering disbelief. "Sir, the Americans carry a rifle unlike anything we've faced. They do not operate a bolt between shots. They fire continuously." "Continuously," echoes Hauptmann Erich Boden, his eyebrows rising. "A machine gun?" "No," Vetter replies. "It fires single shots, but as fast as the soldier can pull the trigger. 8 rounds, one after another, then a new clip, and they repeat." He pauses, choosing his next words carefully. "It gives them overwhelming control of the battlefield, even at medium range." The room becomes very still. Kruger gestures toward the radio operator. "Fetch the intelligence file on American weapons." A few minutes later, a folder stamped "Here, Priority" lands on the table. Kruger flips through it, pulling out a grainy photo of a rifle with a thick wooden stock, an unusual gas cylinder beneath the barrel. There it is, the U.S. rifle, caliber .30, M1. A marginal note in the margin reads, "Semi-automatic, issued as standard infantry weapon." Boden lets out an incredulous breath. "Standard? For all infantry?" "Yes," Vetter confirms. "Every soldier we encountered carried one." Murmurs ripple through the room, some skeptical, some unsettled. Kruger sits back, absorbing the implications. Germany's infantry doctrine had long centered on precise, controlled fire. The Kar 98K was a marksman's rifle, accurate and reliable, but slow compared to the rapid tempo of desert combat. When paired with the squad's MG-34 or MG-42, the system worked. Every rifleman supported the machine gun. But now Kruger realizes the enemy's doctrine is something entirely different, something that changes the mathematics of fire superiority. He turns to Vetter. "Describe their advance." Vetter folds his arms, remembering. "They moved confidently, sir. They pinned us with fast, repeated shots. We barely raised our heads before bullets struck the rocks. 8 rounds, then a metallic ping, then 8 more before we could reposition. Bowden frowns. Their accuracy? Not exceptional, Vetter admits, but their volume more than compensates. Kruger's mind works quickly. Volume of fire, suppression without machine guns, flexibility at close and medium range. A dangerous combination. He taps the photo of the Garand with a gloved finger. This rifle gives every American soldier the firepower of 3 Germans. A silence settles over the group. Heavy, undeniable. Then the door bursts open, and a dust-covered messenger salutes sharply. Herr Oberstleutnant, new reports from Kampf Group Sauer. Kruger motions him to hand over the dispatch. He scans it quickly, and his face tightens. Enemy infantry repelled our probe near Meges El Bab. High rate of rifle fire reported. Units unable to advance due to continuous semi-automatic fire. Another report. Another unexpected setback. The same rifle. As the officers exchange troubled looks, Kruger feels a shift, subtle but unmistakable, in the confidence that once permeated the Afrika Korps. Rommel's veterans had dominated the desert. Their tactics were sharp, their discipline unparalleled. But now a new force had entered the theater. An industrial giant with the manpower, resources, and, apparently, the small arms technology to challenge German infantry superiority. Kruger straightens, his voice calm but grave. Gentlemen, this changes our assumptions. If the Americans possess such rifles in quantity, our infantry will face disadvantages in every direct engagement. He sets down the Garand photo. Prepare a formal intelligence report for Panzer Group headquarters and adjust frontline tactics. Our men must avoid open firefights, unless supported by machine guns or armor. Vetter nods, already imagining the next clash. But as he closes the folder, he knows the truth. Avoiding firefights may not be enough. The Americans have revealed a weapon that forces the Desert War into a new rhythm, one dictated not by bolt handles and single shots, but by relentless, unbroken lines of fire. And the Wehrmacht is only beginning to understand what that means.
June 7, 1944. Near Colville-sur-Mer, Normandy, France. The morning fog clings low across the hedgerow, still carrying the bitter scent of cordite and seawater from yesterday's landings. Grenadier Matthias Rehmer of the 916th Infantry Regiment wipes rainwater from his splinter-patterned smock and pushes forward through knots of tall grass, his Kar 98K slung tightly across his chest. His unit has been fighting and retreating for nearly 24 hours. He had survived North Africa. He had believed he had seen every trick the Americans could muster. But Normandy is different. Artillery thunders constantly. Waves of paratroopers appear from nowhere. And worst of all, the rifles. Always the rifles. Rehmer's squad spreads out along the edge of a bocage wall, its roots thick and ancient. Feldwebel Otto Brandt, a seasoned veteran with a scar running through his eyebrow, raises a clenched fist. "Hold here. Americans ahead," he whispers. The squad hunkers down. The damp earth smells of moss and decay. A distant rustling breaks the silence, followed by faint voices, English, confident, unhurried. Brandt gestures to Rehmer. "You, up top, check their numbers." Rehmer climbs onto a small rise, pushing aside leaves until he sees movement through the mist. A line of American infantry from the 29th Infantry Division is advancing through the field, their silhouettes blurred but unmistakable, rifles held at the ready, bodies low, discipline sharp. Rehmer steadies his breathing and lines up a shot. He squeezes the trigger. Crack! His shot echoes through the hedgerow, and a single American stumbles. But before Rehmer can cycle the bolt, crack, 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 crack! 5 shots snap back in less than 2 seconds. Dirt erupts around him. He throws himself down, gasping. Brandt pulls him behind the wall. Idiot! They'll cut you in half!" But how? How can they fire that fast? They're not using automatics." "They don't need automatics. It's those damned semi-automatics, the Garands." The name sends a ripple of dread through the squad. Rehmer has heard it before, in Tunisia, in Sicily, in Italy, whispered with frustration and disbelief. But here, in the claustrophobic killing grounds of Normandy, its effect is multiplied tenfold. The hedgerows swallow sound, funneling every shot, amplifying the din into a storm of violence. The squad braces as the Americans push nearer. Their rifles begin again, a steady, suffocating rain of fire. Crack, crack, crack. A pause. Ping. Crack, 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 crack. Brandt grits his teeth. "We need the MG-42 up front. Müller, bring it forward." Grenadier Müller drags the machine gun into position, its bipod digging into the dirt. The comforting metallic clatter of the belt being fed into place fills the air. Brandt gives the signal. The MG-42 roars to life, a blistering stream of 1,200 rounds per minute, slicing through the hedgerow. The Americans dive for cover as branches explode around them. For a moment, Rehmer feels the familiar surge of confidence. The MG-42 is their equalizer, their savior, the king of infantry weapons. But even as Müller lays down suppressive fire, something unnerving happens. The Americans fire back. Not timidly, not sporadically, but in disciplined volleys, each rifle acting like a miniature machine gun. Rehmer peers around the mound. Dozens of muzzle flashes flicker through the fog, each burst precise and relentless. Their volume of fire doesn't match the MG-42's. Nothing could. But it's enough. Enough to pin Müller. Enough to force the Germans back behind the bocage wall. Brandt curses. "They're everywhere! Every man firing like a damned light infantry gunner!" Rehmer reloads with trembling hands. He had always believed the German infantryman was unmatched, skilled, meticulously trained, supported by superior doctrine. But the Americans are rewriting the rules. Suddenly, a Garand round snaps through the leaves and slams into Müller's shoulder. The MG-42 goes silent. Rehmer scrambles to pull him back, but Brandt is already shouting orders. "We retreat! Fall back to the secondary hedge! Move!" The squad scrambles, half carrying Müller, as branches explode around them. Garand fire chases them like angry hornets. As they stumble into the next hedgerow, Rehmer collapses against a root-covered mound, his breath ragged, his ears ring from the relentless gunfire. Brandt kneels beside him, breathing heavily, eyes scanning the field. This is what they hid behind their factories. Rifles that let every soldier fire as fast as a trained marksman. Weapons built for an industrial army. Rehmer wipes mud from his cheek. What do we do against that? Brandt closes his eyes briefly. When he opens them, the hardness has returned. We adapt or we die. But deep inside, Rehmer senses the truth. The Americans are not simply better supplied. They are better armed, in a way that no one in the Wehrmacht had imagined possible.
June 10th, 1944. Near Trevière, Normandy. The rain has stopped, but the hedgerows drip steadily, each leaf shaking loose heavy drops onto the mud below. The roads are choked with wrecked carts, burnt-out half-tracks, and the bodies of soldiers from both sides. Every field feels haunted. Every village whispers gunfire. Obergefreiter Matthias Rehmer trudges along a narrow sunken lane with the remnants of his squad. Only 6 of them now. The once proud 916th Infantry Regiment has been reduced to scattered pockets of resistance, each fighting in isolation, each slowly crushed beneath the weight of American infantry and armor. Brandt leads the way, limping slightly from shrapnel in his calf. Rehmer follows, exhausted, his Kar 98K feeling heavier than it ever has. Every few minutes he glances down at it,
and then thinks of the rifle he truly fears, the M1 Garand. As they approach a crossroads lined with shattered farmhouses, Brandt raises a fist. "Stop! Movement ahead!" The squad freezes. Rehmer climbs the embankment and crawls forward, peering through a gap in the hedge. There, across a muddy orchard, a platoon of American infantry from the 2nd Ranger Battalion moves with frightening composure. Their uniforms are soaked, their helmets muddied, but their posture is confident, purposeful. And every single man carries a Garand. Rehmer feels the familiar knot tighten in his stomach. Brandt whispers from behind him, "They can't take them head on, not in the open. We don't have the firepower." The truth hangs in the air like smoke. A single crack echoes, an American rifleman testing his weapon. Then another. Then the full chorus, several Garands firing in rhythmic bursts as they probe the area, establishing fire lanes. Dozens of semi-automatic rifles locking down the orchard before the Germans have even revealed themselves. The Germans used to define the tempo of battle. They used to dictate movement, suppress, advance with precision. Now the Americans control everything within 200 meters. Brandt pulls Rehmer close. "Do you hear that? Listen carefully." Rehmer focuses. Through the orchard, across the rain-soaked fields, the pattern becomes unmistakable. Crack, crack, crack. A metallic ping carried by the wind. Then more shots, more volleys overlapping perfectly, as though the entire platoon is breathing in unison. "This is fire superiority," Brandt mutters. "On demand, at any moment." Rehmer swallows. "And what do we have?" Brandt lifts his Kar 98K slightly. "A rifle designed for a different war." The Americans begin to maneuver, one squad laying down suppressive fire, another flanking through a gap in the orchard. Their movements are bold, fearless even, because they trust their rifles to keep heads down. Rehmer knows exactly what will happen next. He signals Müller, now bandaged and pale, to set up the MG-42 at the corner of the lane. If they can catch the Americans in a bottleneck, maybe the machine gun can buy them a few minutes. Maybe they can force a retreat. But as Müller settles behind the MG-42, Rehmer sees something he has never witnessed before. The Americans anticipate the ambush. Half the platoon shifts instantly, taking kneeling positions behind trees and stone piles. Their rifles fire in waves, fast, timed, purposeful. Bullets hammer the hedgerow. Leaves burst apart. Mounds of dirt spray into the lane. Rehmer ducks instinctively as a Garand round snaps past his ear. Brandt shouts, "Not yet! Don't fire the MG!" But Müller is already panicking. He squeezes the trigger, unleashing a stream of fire. The MG-42's thunderous roar fills the lane, chewing through branches, forcing the Americans down. For 5 seconds, it feels like the battlefield belongs to them again. Then, Garand fire answers, precise, unrelenting. Several rounds slam into the earthen mound around Müller. One punches through his thigh, another grazes his cheek. He screams and collapses sideways, the MG-42 falling silent once more. Brandt curses sharply. "They can't hold this! Fall back!" The squad scrambles away from the hedge as American rounds tear through it. Rehmer grabs Müller under his arms and drags him through the mud. His breath comes in ragged gasps. Another Garand volley cuts a branch clean off above his head. They retreat deeper into the hedgerow network, tripping over roots and ditches. American voices grow louder behind them, confident, coordinated, energized by their firepower. Finally, after a frantic sprint, they collapse behind a mossy stone wall. Müller groans in pain. Brandt presses a bandage into his thigh, his own hands trembling. Rehmer leans back, chest heaving,
listening to the echo of Garand fire drifting through the hedges like a storm. Brandt finally speaks. "That rifle, it changes everything. We built our infantry doctrine around machine guns. They built theirs around giving every soldier a machine gun's firing speed." Rehmer understands now. This isn't just a technological advantage, it's a conceptual one, a redefinition of what infantry combat can be. And for the first time since D-Day, he realizes something terrifying. The Wehrmacht is fighting a war it is no longer designed to win.
June 15, 1944. Near Saint-Lô, Normandy. The sky hangs low and gray over the shattered countryside. Smoke rises from distant villages, and the once quiet orchards now echo with the metallic cadence of rifle fire. The Hedgerow maze has become a graveyard for tanks, for squads, for entire companies swallowed up by American firepower. Obergefreiter Matthias Rehmer sits with his back against a broken stone wall, his uniform soaked with mud and sweat. Around him lie the battered remnants of what was once a proud formation of German infantry. Only 4 men remain in Brandt's squad. 4. Brandt kneels beside a map spread over a wooden ammunition crate. His brow furrows as he reads the latest orders. Another withdrawal, another fall-back line, another attempt to slow the American advance through Normandy's brutal bocage. Rehmer watches him. Where do they want us next? Brandt lets the paper fall to his knee. Does it matter? Every time we make a stand, they bring rifles that spit fire faster than we can blink. He says it quietly, but the bitterness in his voice is unmistakable. For days now, Rehmer has replayed every engagement in his mind, each ambush, each desperate firefight, each retreat. And always, it's the same sound that dominates the memory. Crack, 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 crack. Ping. Crack, crack, crack. The Garand. 8 rounds of controlled devastation delivered by every American soldier in the field. A messenger arrives, panting heavily. "Feldwebel Brandt, battalion wants casualty reports and ammunition counts." Brandt nods grimly. "Tell them we have neither men nor ammunition left to count." The messenger hesitates. For a moment, everyone in the squad knows what he is thinking, but cannot say aloud. The Americans have numbers. The Americans have armor. But worst of all, the Americans have rifles that let them dominate every close-range fight. As the messenger runs off, Brandt turns to Rehmer. "Matthias, you were in Africa. You saw this before any of us. Did you think it would become this?" He gestures vaguely to the hellscape beyond the wall. Rehmer's gaze drifts across the fields. "Back then, I thought it was an oddity, something rare, something that wouldn't matter in the long run." He looks down at the worn stock of his Kar 98K. That was the mistake. Brandt sighs and sits beside him. "The Americans built an army around industry. We built ours around veterans. But veterans die. Factories do not." A distant explosion shakes the ground. Birds scatter from a distant tree line. Then, unmistakably, Garand fire begins again. Not in fear, not in desperation, but in confidence. A rhythm of an advancing army. Rehmer closes his eyes. He remembers the first time he saw the rifle. That strange, relentless weapon tearing through the calm of a Tunisian morning. He remembers the shock on Vedder's face, the disbelief in every after-action report. He remembers thinking, no army equips every soldier with such a weapon. But America did. Brandt stands, gathering his gear. "Orders or no orders, we can't fight them in open ground. Every field becomes a death trap."
He pauses, gripping the wall for support. We need to think differently, fight differently, or this war will be decided by that rifle alone. Rehmer rises beside him. The afternoon sun pushes through the clouds, illuminating the smoke drifting across the ruins of Normandy. Far ahead, the Americans advance steadily, not in scattered squads, but in coordinated fire teams. Their Garands fire in volleys that merge into one unbroken line of suppressive force. German machine gun nests fall silent one by one, either outflanked or overwhelmed by riflemen whose rate of fire keeps defenders pinned from the moment contact is made. Rehmer watches, unable to look away. In that moment, he understands something deeper than the tactical advantage, something existential. The Garand is not merely a weapon, it is a symbol of America's industry, its resources, its determination to equip every soldier with the best tool available. Brandt voices what they both know but have not dared to say aloud. This rifle, it is the future. We are fighting yesterday's war with yesterday's weapons. Rehmer nods slowly. For years, German infantry doctrine had revolved around the machine gun, the MG-34, the MG-42, accurate riflemen supporting a devastating center of fire. It worked brilliantly in 1940, in 1941, even in early 1942. But in a world where every American rifleman can unleash 8 shots in 2 seconds without ever touching a bolt, the doctrine collapses. Brandt shoulders his gear. We move. There's nothing more to learn here except the same lesson repeated. Rehmer watches the Americans advancing behind the next hedgerow, their Garands flashing like a line of fireflies in the smoke. He whispers, almost to himself, "This is how it ends, not with a single battle, but with a rifle that fires too fast for us to stop." The squad trudges away, battered but alive, as the sound of the Garand echoes behind them, a relentless metronome, marking the slow, inevitable rhythm of German defeat.